Fire burns, drums pound, your body trembles, not from fear, but from the trial that will decide if you rise as a warrior or fall in shame. Around you, elders chant. The smoke of sacred herbs twists into the stars, and your people watch with unblinking eyes. These weren't myths. These were real traditions, carved into flesh, bone, and memory. And some of them are so bizarre, so extreme, that you wouldn't believe they were once part of daily life across Native America. But what may sound shocking to us today carried meaning deeper than survival itself. It was about proving strength, connecting with the spirit world, and showing devotion so powerful that pain became prayer. Now here's why this matters to you. We live in a world where struggle is often optional, where comfort shields us from hunger, cold, and danger. But for Native peoples, traditions weren't just rituals, they were lifelines. Miss a ritual and you might lose your place in the tribe. Fail a test and you could be marked forever as weak. Ignore tradition and you risk not only survival, but the wrath of spirits, believed to shape destiny itself. The real question is, would you have endured them? Stick around to the end, because I personally think you won't survive the last trial. Let's take a step back, far back, before highways carved the land into grids, before wires carried light into every home, before concrete towers tried to outdo the sky. In that world, the land itself was the law. On the Great Plains, blizzards could sweep across with a roar that silenced everything. In the deserts, the sun cracked the earth until it seemed to groan. Forests stretched endlessly, thick with shadows, danger, and food, depending on whether you knew what you were looking for. This was North America as the first peoples knew it. A continent alive, unpredictable, and unforgiving. And the people who lived here, they were not a single group, but hundreds of tribes, each with its own beliefs, customs, and ways of surviving. Yet for all their differences, they shared one truth. Traditions weren't just for ceremony. They were anchors, ropes binding the community together, ensuring that in a world where tomorrow wasn't promised, no one stood entirely alone. Some of these traditions are startling to modern eyes. Young men fasting until visions blurred the line between dream and reality, warriors offering their own flesh in dances that doubled as prayers, parents reshaping the very skulls of their infants, not from cruelty but as a mark of beauty and belonging, and mourners in the deepest grief cutting away pieces of themselves to honor those they had lost. Yes, some of this will shock you, some will unsettle you. But pause for a moment and consider, haven't we always, in every culture, asked people to prove devotion, to endure pain, to carry memory in a visible way? These rituals, however extreme, were not madness. They were reflections of the most human need of all, to belong, to endure, and to remember. Our first journey takes us deep into the traditions of the Plains tribes, where a boy stood on the threshold of becoming a man. He was young, often barely past childhood, yet he carried a burden as heavy as the sky above him. His elders would lead him away from the warmth of the camp, away from the comfort of family, to a lonely hilltop where no fire burned and no feast waited. He carried nothing, no food, no water, no blanket. All he had was his body, his spirit, and the courage he could summon in silence. This was known as the Vision Quest, a rite of passage as old as the wind across the prairies. The rules were simple, though the task was anything but. For several days, the boy would fast alone, with only the sun, the stars, and his thoughts for company. The heat of the day burned into him, the cold of night gnawed at his bones, and hunger turned from an ache into a constant companion. When the body grew weak, the mind grew restless. Hallucinations blurred into visions, and it was there, at the breaking point, where the spirit world was believed to step in. Some boys would cut marks into their own skin during the ordeal, offering blood as a signal to the unseen. Others simply endured in silence, waiting for a dream, an animal, or a sign that would define their path. Not all succeeded. Some collapsed in exhaustion and had to be carried home. For them, the trial was not just difficult, it was devastating. But those who did succeed, they returned transformed. They came back with songs no one had heard before, with symbols that would be etched into the tribe's memory, or with visions of sacred animals that became lifelong guides. From that moment on, their destiny was sealed. They were no longer children. They were men, chosen by the spirits. Now, it's worth pausing here. To us, fasting for a few hours feels like punishment. Missing lunch is enough to make most of us grumble. But imagine 4 days. Without food, without water, without even the distraction of company. It wasn't just survival of the body, it was a battle for meaning, courage, and identity. So, let me ask you, would you survive 4 nights alone on a mountaintop, stomach empty, lips parched, waiting for the spirit world to speak? Or would you return home, not with a vision, but with the very human admission? 4 days without food. Today, most of us complain if lunch is late. If the vision quest was endurance through isolation, the Sundance was endurance through pain. Among the Lakota and many Plains peoples, this was not just a ritual, it was the beating heart of their spiritual life, the most sacred of ceremonies. To the people, it was more than dancing. It was sacrifice, prayer, and renewal, all bound together in flesh and song. Picture the scene. The midsummer sun blazes overhead, merciless in its heat. In the center of a lodge or clearing stands a tall pole, the axis between earth and sky. Around it, men gather, warriors who have chosen to give themselves an offering. Their chests or backs are pierced with wooden skewers, cords fastening their flesh directly to that central pole. Then the drumming begins, slow at first, then thunderous, like the heartbeat of the earth itself. With each step they take, the cords tighten, their skin stretches, tearing slowly with every movement. Some swayed for hours, sweat pouring, blood marking the ground beneath them. Some danced until the skewers ripped free, flesh torn open in sacrifice. From the outside, to a casual observer, it may appear brutal, almost unthinkable. But for those inside the circle, this was no act of torment. It was prayer made visible. Every ounce of pain was a gift. It was given for the health of the people, for the survival of the tribe, for the balance of the world itself. No one danced alone. The entire community surrounded them. Elders chanted, children watched in wide-eyed awe, women sang encouragement, and the beat of the drums never ceased. Pain became more than spectacle. It became reverence, a reminder that life itself was tied together by sacrifice. Now pause for a moment. Most of us grumble when we stub a toe, and the idea of enduring hours of tearing flesh for anyone, much less the entire community, feels unimaginable. But that was the power of the Sundance. It was proof that the strength of one could carry the weight of many. So I ask you, could you endure it? Could you stand beneath the burning sun, flesh tethered to a sacred pole, and dance not for yourself, but for everyone you loved? Let's step into a tradition that quite literally shaped identity, the practice of cranial deformation. Among certain native groups, particularly those influenced by Mayan culture and even some Choctaw communities, the shape of one's skull was not left to nature. Instead, it was molded, intentionally, carefully, and with deep cultural meaning. From the earliest days of infancy, when a baby's skull is still soft and malleable, parents would bind the head between boards or pads, gently pressing over time to elongate the skull into a taller, sloped shape. To outside eyes today, it may look odd or even unsettling, but in their world, this wasn't cruelty. It was beauty. It was status. It was a mark of nobility and spiritual connection. Think of it this way. We in the modern age endure braces to straighten teeth, surgeries to alter appearances, and fashions that squeeze and reshape the body. These parents did something similar, but on a different canvas, the very head of the child. To them, a naturally round skull might be seen as plain, while a reshaped skull carried grace, intelligence, or a divine quality. Archaeologists who uncover these skulls often label them strange or abnormal, but that says more about us than about the people themselves. In their own time, these heads were symbols of pride. Far from damaging the brain, when done correctly, the practice left intelligence and health unaffected. It altered appearance, yes, but it also defined identity. Now, picture a parent holding their newborn, not asking, will they walk? Will they thrive? But thinking, how can I shape them into the beauty of our tradition? It may sound bizarre to us, but to them, it was sacred, a way of weaving a child into the fabric of culture from the very beginning. And if you think this is a thing of the distant past, consider our own habits. We still reshape ourselves in the name of beauty or belonging. Tight shoes that ruin feet, fashion trends that test comfort, or the occasional ill-advised haircut that becomes a family joke. Humanity has always asked, how can I look the part? The Choctaw and others simply answered that question with boards and cloth. So while cranial deformation may strike modern sensibilities as extreme, For those who practiced it, it was no stranger than the braces and beauty regimens we take for granted today. Their heads bore the shape of tradition itself, visible proof of belonging to something greater. But beauty was not the only thing marked on the body. Grief left scars too. Scars you couldn't hide. Grief has always worn many faces. For some, it comes as tears that refuse to stop. For others, silence that lingers for years. But among certain native tribes, grief did not always remain invisible. It was carved into the body itself. When a loved one died, especially someone close, a parent, a child, or a sibling, grief sometimes took the form of finger amputation. A small joint would be cut away, often with ritual precision, leaving a permanent mark of devotion. Think of what that means. Today, most of us wear black for funerals, maybe place flowers at a grave, or carry a locket with a photo. These people gave something far more personal. They gave a part of themselves, literally. Each shortened finger was more than an injury. It was a story. A missing joint might whisper, "Here lies my brother." Another might say, "This was for my mother." Another yet, "I lost my child and I carry that loss in my very hand." The hands became living memorials. Imagine meeting someone in the community and noticing their fingers, marked by loss. Each absence a silent record of sorrow. It was grief made visible, impossible to hide, impossible to forget. And perhaps that was the point. In a world without photographs or headstones lined neatly in rows, the body itself became the memorial. Now, before you wince too hard, remember that mourning has always had its extremes. Victorians wore hair from their deceased loved ones woven into jewelry. Some cultures scarred their skin in grief, others shaved their heads. Each age finds its way to say, "I have lost, and I must show it." Cutting away a finger joint may seem shocking to us, but in their eyes, it was the truest expression of love. It also carried a strange kind of permanence. Tears dry, black clothes are folded away, but a missing joint? That was a lifelong reminder, one that could not be taken off or forgotten. Every time the mourner reached for food, worked with tools, or touched another hand, grief was there, present, remembered. So let me ask you, would you surrender a part of your body to keep grief alive? Now, brace yourself for one of the most brutal rites of passage ever recorded, the ant trial. If the vision quest tested the mind and the Sundance tested flesh, this was a trial that tested every nerve in the human body. Warriors, often still young men proving their worth, would slip their hands into woven gloves made from leaves. But these weren't ordinary gloves. Inside were hundreds of live, stinging ants, trapped and furious, their only escape found in unleashing wave after wave of venom into the skin of the one who wore them. The moment the gloves were pulled tight, the ordeal began. The ants bit and stung relentlessly, their venom flooding into muscle and blood. Burning pain spread up the arms like fire. The skin blistered, muscles seized, and for many, the world tilted into hallucinations. Some men fainted, some convulsed. Yet the rule was simple: endure. However long it lasted, minutes that surely felt like hours, the warrior had to stand firm, fists clenched, body trembling, because the entire tribe was watching. To an outsider, it might look like sheer cruelty. Why force young men through agony no sane person would choose? But within the culture, it was no cruel prank. It was proof. Proof of courage, of strength, of worthiness. Survive with dignity and you were no longer a boy, you were a warrior. Fail, and the shame could follow for years. Think about it. Today, many of us flinch at a single ant bite in the garden. It itches, it stings, and we grumble about it for days. Now multiply that by hundreds, all at once, crawling, biting, injecting venom, designed by nature to make predators think twice. Enduring that wasn't just a challenge, it was a declaration to the tribe in the spirit world. I can suffer and I will not break. And the trial didn't end when the gloves came off. The venom left lasting pain, sometimes weakness in the arms for days, even weeks. Yet scars of the ordeal became marks of pride, whispered proof that the young man had faced the fire beneath his skin and emerged with honor intact. So here's the question for you. Would you endure it? Could you keep your hands steady as ants bit down? Now here's the twist. What looks bizarre to us, fasting until visions blurred, flesh torn in prayer, skulls reshaped from infancy, fingers sacrificed in mourning, or hands plunged into gloves of venomous ants, was not madness. It was meaning. These traditions were not random acts of cruelty or strange experiments in suffering. They were deliberate, deeply woven into the structure of life. They created identity, They bonded people to one another. They made survival possible in worlds far harsher and less forgiving than most of us will ever know. And the truth is, echoes of these practices are still around us today. We pierce our skin for earrings, tattoos, or rituals of fashion. Some people willingly endure hours under the buzzing needle of a tattoo machine and wear the pain with pride, not unlike those who once danced tethered to poles beneath the sun. We push our bodies in extreme sports, running marathons, climbing mountains, or flinging ourselves out of airplanes, all for the thrill, the test, the proof of courage. Soldiers endure boot camps that break the body before rebuilding it, just as warriors once endured trials of fire, fasting, and flesh. Even in modern societies, rites of passage often involve discomfort or pain. Fraternity initiations, grueling military drills, hazing rituals. None so lethal perhaps as the ant trial, but they echo the same idea, that suffering can be transformed into belonging. Endure the pain and you are one of us. And perhaps we should ask ourselves, are we really so different? We wear uncomfortable shoes to prove style, submit to surgeries for beauty, and laugh at our own aches after weekend gardening as if pain itself is a badge of honor. It's easy to dismiss these ancient practices as primitive or cruel, but they reveal something universal: our shared need to prove strength, to honor the dead, to belong to something greater than ourselves. So maybe, before we shake our heads in disbelief, we should recognize that the human desire to endure and to transform pain into meaning has never truly gone away. It has only changed its costume. So which of these traditions would you survive? Could you fast alone until visions came? Bleed for your people in the sun dance? Or wear the bite of venom as proof of your courage? From reshaping skulls to giving fingers to grief, these stories remind us that the human spirit has always been willing to endure the unthinkable, for belonging, for survival, for love. Tell me in the comments, which tradition shocked you the most, and which one do you think you could endure? Don't forget to hit like, subscribe, and join us for more journeys into the strange and breathtaking history of Native America. Because sometimes, the past doesn't just shock us, it dares us to ask, what pain would we endure to prove who we are?